When you think of college football, fans rushing the field is an event synonymous with major upsets and milestone victories. And I'm not talking about one guy streaking. I'm talking about thousands of people stampeding the gridiron in pure jubilation.
There is pandemonium in Piscataway!
Whether it's some dude hanging on the upright, fans carrying the goalposts down the city streets, or the band is out on the field, crowds have been doing these types of things, specifically at American football games, for nearly 150 years. And it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. But as much as this pandemonium is liberating, it also comes with its side effects. Having thousands of people stampeding their way onto the field is complete anarchy. These types of moments have seen everything from fans ripping up turf, somebody spreading ashes on the field, random spectators running into players, players running into spectators. It's a complete free-for-all, and many people have been seriously hurt. Overall, storming the field has had a wild history. From the awesome to the horrifying, we will take a look at some of the craziest stories associated with this event, right after a word from today's sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes tickets from all across the web and puts them into one area, making buying simple. They have everything from football, baseball, basketball, concerts, festivals, or more. And with football season back, why not go to one of your local college or NFL games? The atmosphere is unlike any other. SeatGeek rates every ticket from 0 to 10 to make sure that you're getting a good deal, with green meaning good and red meaning bad. And for first-time buyers, use code KTO at checkout for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure to click the link in the description to download the app. To start us off, let's go over the symbol of a true classic American football crowd rush, the goalposts. A field goal post has changed in size and shape over the years. This 500-pound object has been the final decider of many games. And despite all its changes in size and shape, the one constant is the fans' desire to rip them down. With the moment of chaos that ensues, along with absolutely zero order amongst thousands of random people in a state of pure emotion, it's complete anarchy. And everyone instinctually begins to look for something to unite them. It's both beautiful and terrifying to witness. What's hilarious about fans tearing down the goalposts is it's not always because their team just won. Fans of Marietta College once took them down after breaking a 34-game losing streak with a tie. Northwestern fans even did it after losing a game, when they set the major college record with 29 straight losses. Their fans tore them down and chanted, "We're the worst." Once the goalposts fall, the people who took them down now have a decision to make. What do we do with the goalpost?
Well, the search is on for the goalpost thrown into the river after the big victory on Saturday. Vol fans tore them down during that massive celebration inside Neyland.
As recently as this year, both Tennessee and Kansas fans decided to throw their posts into bodies of water. In 1997, after a big win versus BYU, UTEP fans marched it up the stands, slowly but surely, and threw it out of the stadium, onto the mountain. After Marshall beat La Tech to win Conference USA in 2014, fans tore down the goalposts and marched them to a nearby steel mill, hoping to divide the posts into commemorative pieces. When the mill turned them down, a resourceful fan did the job in the parking lot. Montana fans, meanwhile, celebrated a second straight trip to the Division I AA championship game by carrying the goalposts downtown. When they realized a 30-foot section wouldn't fit in the front door at Red's Bar, they regrouped, shimmied it through the back door, and wedged it on a wall between two TVs and a stuffed shark. According to this article I just previously quoted by The Athletic, the first time a field goal post went down potentially happened all the way back in 1876, when fans of Yale tore them down midway through the game so that Harvard couldn't kick a field goal. Since then, there's been quite the history of goalpost incidents. By 1929, ripping down goalposts had become a regular tradition in college football, and Richmond's head of police wasn't having it. He told officers to protect the goalposts with force because they were city property, and this ended with 3 students hospitalized with cracked heads. That same year, something similar happened in Wisconsin, only instead of police protecting the posts, it was the home fans, who saw their team upsetted by Iowa. Even though their team lost that game, they successfully kept Iowa fans from ripping them down. Then in 1961, after a 3-3 tie between Florida and Florida State, apparently Florida State fans tore down one post and attempted to make their way across the field to the other goalpost, only to be met at midfield by Florida fans who had torn down the other post, and they apparently used them as battering rams. In an attempt to stop the fighting, the band played the Star-Spangled Banner. Wow, what a moment. Now, all those incidents I just previously mentioned are crazy, but for the most outlandish goalpost-related story of all, we first must go back to the beginning. The birth of college football took place between Princeton and Rutgers in 1869, which also kicked off the first official rivalry college football would see. Rutgers would get the first W, but to say that Princeton figured out the game after that would be a massive understatement. And boy did they make Rutgers pay. Literally for the next century, Princeton flat out dominated, which included a stretch of 33 wins in a row. I was just mind blown looking at this Wikipedia page. I mean, look at these scores. Most of these games were soul-crushing blowouts where Rutgers failed to score a single point. Man, could you imagine losing 80-0, then just a week later you have to play those same dudes and then lose 82-0? How humiliating. Finally, by the 1950s, Rutgers started putting up a fight, and the year 1968 is where we get back to the theme of this section. So, Rutgers would beat Princeton for the first time in 6 years, and as it was reported, there was hardly a goalpost left in one piece on the entire Princeton University campus. Apparently, even the practice field posts fell. They wouldn't stop there. Over the course of the next decade or so, Rutgers fans would go on a goalpost frenzy. In 1969, they tore them down with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and did it again 2 years later, and 2 years after that. Luckily, these games weren't all that close, so it didn't affect the outcome. That was until they did it for a fourth time. With it seemingly a tradition at this point, Rutgers fans tore them down in 1974 with a few minutes left, with their team up 6-0. But unlike previous years, Princeton scored a touchdown with 22 seconds left. In total, Rutgers fans tore down the posts what I believe to be 7 times in 13 years, 6 of which happened with the game still going. And the only reason it stopped is because these two teams quit playing each other after 1980. Now, amongst all these college-related stories, the question I'm sure many of you are curious about is, why doesn't this happen in the NFL? Well, first off, it has. Back in the NFL early days, it used to happen more regularly, as you can see here in the 1958 NFL Championship. As for more recent examples, the Bills Mafia did it a whopping 3 times, first in 1980, then again in 1988, and for the final time in 1990. In 1985, Patriots fans stormed the field and carried the goalposts out of the stadium. In 1998, the Cardinals made the playoffs for the first time in 16 years, so their fans rushed the field. And the most recent example, I believe, is the 2007 Dolphins, where after starting 0-14, they finally won their first game. Unfortunately, the NFL does their best to not show these kinds of things due to the image they're trying to keep. And this kind of leads me to my next point. The reason we don't see this happening more often in the NFL is because, number one, the types of fans are different. In college, you get more of the crowd of college kids who don't care about potential consequences, versus NFL fans who are older on average and usually pay more for their tickets. It's also the fact that there isn't landmark upsets in the NFL like we see in college. The next point is that the NFL takes way bigger security measures and enforces harsh penalties to fans, including lifetime bans from any NFL stadium if caught. Despite a crowd rush not happening in the Bills Stadium in decades, NFL security in 2011 actually took down the posts before the crowd could potentially rush. This is something that we see even in college nowadays. And even though the Bills fans didn't rush that day, this was a smart move, because potentially horrible situations occur when order is lost. Unfortunately, amongst all the excitement, some bad things have happened over the years when crowds rush these fields. Many lawsuits have been filed, and laws have been created due to serious head trauma people being paralyzed, and even death occurring from people being hit with the goalposts as they fell. Wildly enough, in 2001, when a Ball State student was rendered paraplegic from the post landing on his back, the school had promoted the students to take down the posts, flashing a message on the scoreboard after the game saying, "The goalposts look lonely." The student who was hit received $300,000 from the university. As for the pure amount of people who get onto the field, it's basically impossible to establish order. The 1976 College All-Star Game versus the Super Bowl champions ended in the third quarter due to unruly fans breaking out in brawls on the field. Going back to the 1985 Patriots fans that carried the goalposts out of the stadium, they accidentally ran into a high-voltage power line, which electrocuted and seriously injured some guy. He sued and eventually settled for $4.5 million against the security company from that game. Nothing quite that severe has happened recently, but in 2022, Alabama player Jermaine Burton appeared to strike a Tennessee fan when they were rushing the field. Although Nick Saban did not discipline Burton afterwards, saying that he was, quote, scared. Some other weird, yet not as serious things have happened that included the Auburn fan spreading ashes on the field after the kick six, and oddly enough, an Alabama fan did the same thing a year later when they beat Auburn. Then there's this lady who cut out a piece of Tennessee's checkerboard and was later found listed to buy online.
You know, it didn't appear to me that there was anything in my mind that this would be a game where we would storm the field. But hey, let's do more of it, I guess. Hope I don't get in trouble for that. Probably, yeah. That's going viral. Is it?
Damn.
Although I love Brian Kelly promoting the fans to storm the field, my favorite thing related to this subject is when people rush too early.
The band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
There's not many college football moments quite as iconic as Stanford's band being out on the field, but people have been notorious for celebrating too early. One chaotic moment similar to the band on the field was not long ago when Ball State thought that they had won after it appeared that Western Michigan's player was down. He apparently wasn't, and they managed to score despite all the people on the field. Although, after 5 minutes of deciding what happened, the refs did determine that there was a forward lateral, so Ball State ended up winning. Missouri fans in 1997, Notre Dame fans in 2005, and Baylor fans in 2021 all had a moment where they celebrated too early and they had to clear the field to continue play. In 2008, Michael Crabtree made one of the most iconic plays in college football history, but there was still 1 second left to play, and the field was covered in fans. This led to one of the greatest images of a kickoff. After multiple unsportsmanlike penalties, Texas Tech had to kick off from their own 7.5-yard line, with fans crowded around in every direction. Then there's the game where it happened multiple times. Back in 2011, the BYU quarterback threw a pass up for grabs that landed on the ground with 1 second left. The Utah fans saw 0-0 and stormed the field. After clearing the field, BYU attempted a kick, which was blocked. And as the crowd rushed again, a penalty flag was thrown.
While the play was still alive, the crowd rushed the field. That's a live ball 15-yard penalty from the 34, one on time down at the 19. Holy smokes.
As if this couldn't get any wilder, the game ended like this.
It hit the upright! And the game does end! And for a third time, the Utah fans storm the field.
Talk about a close call. Imagine the crowd potentially blowing the game for your team for rushing too early. Luckily for Utah fans, their premature celebration didn't come back to haunt them. But for Kentucky fans, one unfortunate day in 2002 will forever be burned into their memories. On the brink of an upset versus LSU, fans crowded the sidelines, eager to celebrate their big victory. Even players assumed they had won by dumping their coach with Gatorade before the final play.
Randall has got it, Styles lets it fly. Oh my goodness!